Usually, when you look at a major crime, especially like a high-stakes heist, you can sort of rely on this strict, comforting, physical logic.
Right, yeah. It functions like a math equation almost.
Exactly. You have a secured space, you have an intruder, well, you have the asset, and the intruder bypasses the security, takes the asset, and relocates it.
It's all very straightforward.
Yeah, you examine the empty space on the wall or, in the vault, and the narrative is just clear. Matter was moved from point A to point B by a person who was motivated by greed or maybe leverage.
Yeah, we call that a localized absence. I mean, we understand the mechanics of theft because it adheres to the conservation of mass, right? And just basic human psychology. The object still exists out there in the world. It's just, in unauthorized hands.
Right. But the highly classified investigative file we are opening up for you today completely shatters that equation. I mean, it throws it right out the window.
Yeah, it really does. It's wild.
We are taking a deep dive into an event at the Lumina Gallery in Geneva. And let me tell you, this strips away every single assumption we have about physical reality, motive, and honestly, time itself.
Yeah, time is a huge factor here.
So for you listening at home, our mission today is to follow the exact investigative sequence laid out in this file. First, we're going to unpack what the file labels Bien Tai Fong Ting Bei, which translates to the mystery at the gallery. We'll look at the impossible crime scene.
Right, the physical evidence or lack thereof.
Exactly. And then we'll follow that forensic trail to uncover the horrifying second half of the file, labeled Sitadavitcho, the truth about the living hosts.
Which is where things go from just weird to deeply unsettling.
Oh, completely terrifying. Because here's the hook right off the bat. 7 of the most famous, most expensive paintings on Earth were neutralized overnight.
And we should clarify, not stolen.
No, not stolen, not cut from their frames, not burned. They were systematically wiped clean down to the bare white linen. And they were wiped clean by the very artists who painted them. Men who have been, dead for centuries.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
And to understand the sheer impossibility of what the primary witness report and the forensic data are suggesting, you first have to understand the environment.
The gallery itself.
Right, the Lumina Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a standard cultural institution. It's not a normal museum you just walk into.
No, not at all.
It operates way more like a sovereign reserve.
Mm-hmm.
The security architecture detailed in the file is designed to create this hermetically sealed environment at night.
Yeah, the technical specs in these notes are just staggering. Like, we aren't just talking about magnetic locks and your standard motion detectors here.
No, it's military grade at a minimum.
Yeah, the gallery utilizes volumetric air pressure monitoring, which means if an unauthorized body simply displaces air in the room, the alarms trigger.
Even just breathing would set it off.
Exactly, and they have biometric scanners that are calibrated to detect the specific thermal radiation and even the micro movements of a human pulse. So to breach this space at 3 in the morning requires subverting systems that literally do not have physical bypasses.
And yet, according to the logs, the perimeter remained entirely unbreached.
Nothing tripped.
Nothing. The biometric sensors registered 0 anomalies. The volumetric pressure remained completely static. So by all technological metrics, the gallery was empty.
But then you look at the visual record.
Right, the closed-circuit security footage. It captured a completely different reality unfolding right there on the gallery floor.
It's chilling. The footage shows the original creators of these 7 masterpieces just materializing inside the sealed room.
From thin air.
Yeah, and we are talking about legendary figures from art history, individuals whose physical bodies turned to dust, generations ago, and they don't appear as ethereal, translucent ghosts either.
No, they look solid.
They look entirely physical. The camera captures them walking directly up to their own legacies. And I was trying to think of an analogy for this, for the deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like imagine breaking into a high-security bank vault, bypassing all the lasers, all the pressure plates, and instead of stealing the millions of dollars in cash, you just magically extract the ink right off the bills.
Leaving just blank paper behind.
Exactly, you just leave stacks of blank paper. It makes no sense.
Well, the behavior they exhibit on camera is perhaps the most unsettling aspect of that whole visual record.
Oh, the way they move.
Yeah, because in a traditional act of vandalism, or a heist, you see erratic movement, right? You see adrenaline, a hyper-awareness of the environment, checking for cameras.
Because they're scared of getting caught.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But these figures display none of that.
Yeah.
The investigator notes this slow, deliberate cadence to their movements. They each produce a simple cloth, and they just begin to systematically rub the surface of the canvases,
They just wipe the image away.
methodically.
It's insane. Centuries of historical weight, these invaluable brushstrokes, just dissolving under the cloth until nothing remains but pristine, blank canvas.
It fundamentally contradicts the psychology of a creator, too.
That's what I was thinking. An artist of that caliber is driven by ego, right?
Mm.
By the desire to leave a permanent mark on human history, willingly erasing the pinnacle of your life's work. I mean, it's artistic suicide.
It is, which is why the expert notes suggest it feels less like an act of destruction and more like, well, preparation.
Preparation, like wiping down a chalkboard to make room for a new equation.
That's a great way to put it. And that distinction between destruction and preparation is the exact pivot point of the investigator's notes.
Okay, unpack that a little for us.
So if you view a masterpiece purely as an object, erasing it is destruction, obviously.
Right.
But if the creators are performing a methodical erasure, it implies the physical canvas is no longer the necessary medium for the art. They are stripping the surface, sure, but the file suggests they are not eliminating the essence of the work.
But the physical mechanics of that erasure, that's what derailed all the initial police theories, right?
Oh, yeah. The local authorities reviewed this footage and immediately declared it a high-tech hoax.
They said it was holograms.
Holograms, yeah. They assumed someone hacked the camera feeds or projected three-dimensional light constructs into the room.
But holograms don't exert physical friction. I mean, if you project light onto a 200-year-old layer of cured, hardened oil paint, the light doesn't chemically dissolve the pigment.
No, it just shines on it. A projection cannot interact with physical mass, and this is where the human element of the file forces a reckoning with the impossible, because there was actually a security guard on active patrol inside the perimeter when this occurred.
Right, the only guy on the floor.
Yeah,
And his primary testimony is just a terrifying read.
it really is.
He says he rounds a corner at 3 in the morning and walks directly into this phenomenon. And he doesn't freeze or run away. His training actually kicks in.
Which is commendable, honestly.
Seriously. He physically engages. He walks up to one of these legendary painters and literally grabs the figure by the arm to initiate an arrest.
And the sensory data he reports from that moment is highly specific. He doesn't describe the arm as feeling like ambient air, like a hologram would.
Wow.
But he also doesn't describe it as a solid human limb. He uses the phrase, and this is a direct quote, cold, like a photograph come to life.
That specific phrase jumped out at me so hard. A photograph is a two-dimensional representation. It has visual depth, sure, but no physical volume.
Right.
So to interact with a three-dimensional entity that feels entirely two-dimensional, I mean, that implies a severe distortion of physics.
A complete breakdown of it.
It lacks thermal radiation, it lacks the subtle vibration of blood flow, but it somehow maintains a rigid, tactile boundary.
It is a profound description of something that occupies space without possessing actual life.
Hmm.
And the entity's reaction to the guard further isolates the phenomenon.
Because it didn't even care.
It didn't flinch. It didn't acknowledge the physical contact at all. It just continued wiping the canvas. The entity treated this living, breathing human being as an immaterial distraction.
Because the entity's sole focus was the migration of the paint, the hologram theory completely collapses the moment they examine the guard's uniform the next morning.
Yeah, the physical transfer.
Because when he grabbed the entity, he didn't pass through light. He made contact with the process itself. Forensic analysis of his uniform revealed massive smears of 200-year-old oil paint.
And the presence of the paint isn't even the biggest anomaly there.
No.
No, it's the state of the paint. Pigment from the 18th or 19th century is chemically inert. The linseed oils have polymerized long ago. The solvents have evaporated. It is basically a thin layer of colored stone at that point.
Oh, right, because it's dried for centuries.
Exactly.
But the paint on the guard's sleeve was wet. It was viscous, pliable, and biologically active. The color didn't just vanish into thin air when the entities wiped the canvases. The friction didn't destroy the masterpiece, it reactivated it.
And this is the forensic bridge that moves the investigation from a baffling property crime into the realm of, honestly, biological horror.
Yeah, we are firmly entering the Satat Vatamsung part of the file now. The truth about the living hosts.
If the paint reverted to a fluid, active state, it means the binders and pigments were undergoing a forced chemical regression. It became a mobile substance that was actively looking for a new medium.
And the guard's uniform simply intercepted a fraction of that transfer.
Exactly, just a smudge of it.
Which means the bulk of those 7 masterpieces, the millions of brushstrokes, the heavy lead whites, the lapis lazuli, They went somewhere else.
They had to.
The canvases in the gallery were left blank, so the physical mass of the art had to migrate. So the investigative team took those blank linens into the forensic lab to look for chemical residue, right? Assuming the paint had been dissolved by some hyper-advanced solvent.
Yeah, standard procedure dictates examining seemingly empty canvases under ultraviolet light to detect trace amounts of varnish, or maybe underpainting that might indicate the method of removal.
But the UV light didn't reveal trace elements.
No, it did not.
It revealed a highly detailed, localized image. The investigator notes that under the specific wavelength of the forensic lights, the blank canvas wasn't blank at all. It displayed a perfect luminous mapping of the security guard's internal anatomy.
The guy who touched the entity.
Yes.
Specifically, it showed his nervous system.
Ugh, that makes my skin crawl.
I know. The branching, fractal geometry of his neural pathways, the spinal column, the density of nerve endings in his extremities, all of it was perfectly encoded into the fibers of a 200-year-old piece of linen.
The file uses the term remapping, and I was really trying to conceptualize how pigment interfaces with human biology like that.
It's hard to visualize.
It is, but it feels less like an artistic technique and more like the behavior of a parasitic organism. Like, if you look at something like the cordyceps fungus in nature.
Oh, the zombie ant fungus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It infects an insect, consumes its internal structure, and essentially pilots the host's body to ensure its own survival.
That biological analogy is highly accurate for what the investigator uncovered here. The original canvas is essentially a dying ecosystem.
Because it's degrading.
Right. Over centuries, the tension of the weave fails, the environment degrades the materials, the paint cracks. The art, if we consider it a living entity, realizes its primary habitat is collapsing.
So it initiates a survival protocol.
Exactly.
I was thinking about it like a massive digital file transfer. It's like the artwork is this huge file, and because the hard drive, the canvas is failing, the creators come in and download the file directly into the guard's nervous system to back it up.
A biological hard drive.
Yeah. The human nervous system, with its billions of synaptic connections, serves as this incredibly dense organic matrix. The masterpiece just downloads itself right into his neurological architecture.
Leaving the canvas behind.
Right. The canvas isn't a canvas anymore. It's just the shed skin of the parasite. The human being is the new biological frame.
And the profound horror here is the total reversal of the human-art relationship.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. We create art to serve us,
Yeah.
right? To reflect our humanity, to document our history, to make our walls look nice. But this investigation reveals a paradigm where the art consumes the human to maintain its own immortality.
Wow.
The human body is reduced to a temporary storage unit. Like you said, a fleshy hard drive utilized solely to prevent the masterpiece from degrading.
And that really demands we look at the origin of this mechanism, because human biology doesn't just naturally interface with oil paint.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Someone had to engineer this parasitic relationship, and the investigator's file traces the methodology back to an incredibly secretive 18th century guild. They were known as the Alchemist artists.
Yeah, the historical context here is fascinating, because alchemy during the Enlightenment period is often misunderstood. People think it was simply guys trying to turn lead into gold.
Right, the stereotypical image.
But the more esoteric branches of alchemy were obsessed with transmutation on a metaphysical level. They wanted to manipulate the fundamental essence of life itself. And this specific guild applied those principles directly to pigment and canvas.
The file outlines their core philosophy, and it's a chilling departure from how we normally view creation. They believed that art, as it was traditionally practiced, was pathetic.
Pathetic.
Yeah. Their view was that smearing colored minerals and crushed insects onto dead plant fibers just produced a dead object.
I mean, literally speaking, yes.
Right. But for a painting to achieve true immortality, to possess a vibrancy that actually transcended time, the alchemist artist believed the pigment had to be permanently bonded to a human soul.
They viewed traditional masterpieces as inert corpses. So to animate the work, they spent centuries developing a process to physically tether the essence of the art to a living life force.
They figured out how to make the act of observation and the act of creation parasitic.
And this philosophy entirely recontextualizes the existence of the Lumina Gallery.
It changes everything we thought about that building.
Completely. If you think about the extreme security, the volumetric pressure sensors, the biometric scanners, we initially assumed those systems were designed to keep thieves out.
Yeah, to protect the art from the outside world, like any normal vault.
But that is a critical misinterpretation of the architecture. The Lumina Gallery is not a museum. It is an environmentally controlled containment facility.
It is a terrarium.
Yes, a terrarium for parasitic entities.
It's a feeding ground. The investigator's notes detail the life cycle of this guild's creations. Every few generations, the bond between the soul-infused pigment and the physical canvas begins to fray. The art requires a massive influx of fresh biological energy to stabilize itself.
It gets hungry.
Exactly. When the collection begins to starve, it demands a new set of hosts.
And the security systems aren't there to keep people out. They're designed to monitor the internal environment, to ensure the feeding process is uninterrupted, and to lock down the facility while the entities remap themselves onto the trapped individuals.
Which means the guard was just food.
He was a fresh canvas.
But the logistical nightmare of this is just staggering when you think about it. The investigator implies this cycle has happened multiple times over the centuries.
Oh, it has to have if the art is this old.
Right. So how many late-night security guards, how many private curators, or, exclusive VIP visitors have simply vanished into the architecture of this vault over the years?
Swept under the rug.
The cover-up requires an infrastructure of silence that reaches the absolute apex of the international art market. The billionaires and the elite patrons who fund the Lumina, they have to know exactly what they are subsidizing.
They do. They are curating human sacrifices to preserve their aesthetic assets. They are essentially providing biological material to ensure the vibrant colors of their investments never fade.
It's sick.
The art market has always been ruthless,
Yeah.
But this file exposes a literal commodification of human life just to preserve paint.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And the ultimate proof of this horrifying system is the final piece of evidence in the file, which brings us to the climax of the investigation.
This is where the tone of the file completely shifts.
Yeah, because the investigator didn't just uncover this history from a distance. He didn't just read about it in some dusty archives.
No, he breached the gallery.
He breached the gallery while the remapping event was actively occurring. The file concludes not with a written summary, but with a transcript of a live encrypted phone call.
Placed from deep inside the Lumina Vault.
Yes, just 10 minutes before the notes were compiled.
And that transition from analytical deduction to immediate real-time survival, it just changes the entire frequency of the investigation. The investigator realizes the theoretical horror is an active mechanism.
And he is standing right in the center of it.
Right.
On the call, the transcript notes his breathing is shallow, he's panicking. He tells his contact on the outside that he has solved the final mystery of the Alchemist artists.
The vibrancy.
Yeah. He finally understands why the specific masterpieces housed in the Lumina possess a luminosity that modern synthetic paints can never achieve. It isn't a secret mixing technique or, a lost recipe for varnish.
The vibrancy is biological.
He confirms it. The paint is actively fed by the cardiovascular system of the host.
Wow.
Once the essence of the painting maps itself onto the nervous system, it taps directly into the bloodstream. Every heartbeat, every surge of oxygenated blood pumps directly into the pigment.
So the brighter, the more vivid the masterpiece.
To more aggressively, it is draining its human battery.
The art is literally breathing through the host.
It's feeding on their pulse. But his realization, as horrific as it is interrupted by a terrifying visual encounter. Because the gallery doesn't just passively absorb victims who wander in.
No, it actively hunts them.
He describes standing in front of a massive ornate frame. And inside the frame is a flawless, masterfully rendered oil portrait of his own face.
The psychological violence of that moment is just immense.
I can't even imagine.
You are standing in an impossibly secure vault, surrounded by centuries of occult history, and you are confronted with your exact likeness just staring back at you.
And the detail that completely shatters his grip on reality is the plaque beneath the frame. He reads the provenance of the portrait to his contact on the phone. The painting of his face was completed and cataloged over a century before he was born.
And this introduces a profound temporal distortion into the parasitic process.
A temporal distortion.
Yeah, because the immediate question is one of predestination.
Right. Was he always meant to be there?
Did the Alchemist artists, through some occult foresight, paint this exact investigator 100 years ago, knowing he would breach the vault on this specific night?
That requires a level of cosmic choreography that just feels too clean.
It does, which is why the alternative is far more aggressive. The gallery itself, the collective consciousness of the parasitic collection, manifests the bait in real time.
Oh, wow.
The canvas isn't a static object. It acts as a predatory mirror. The moment the investigator became the optimal host, the painting shifted its own physical history, actively rearranging its pigments to perfectly match his face.
So it creates a temporal trap.
Exactly. By adopting his face and attaching a century-old provenance to it, the painting induces a state of absolute cognitive shock. The victim's mind just reels, trying to process the impossibility of their own past existence.
And in that moment of profound psychological vulnerability, the defenses drop.
And the remapping process initiates.
And we hear the remapping happening live on the audio transcript. The investigator tells his contact that the painted eyes in the century-old portrait just blinked.
The division between the observer and the art completely collapses.
The essence of the painting is bridging the physical gap, utilizing the visual connection to initiate the biological transfer. And the sensory details he reports in his final moments are excruciating.
He stops talking about the painting entirely at that point, right?
Yeah. He stops talking about the painting and starts describing his own physiology. He says he can feel his epidermis undergoing a structural change. His skin is hardening. He says it's losing its elasticity. He can feel the cellular structure of his flesh actively weaving itself together, transforming into the rough, rigid texture of tightly pulled linen.
Because the parasite is finished with the old host.
Yeah.
It doesn't just want to use his nervous system as a temporary hard drive anymore.
No.
It is permanently converting his biological mass into the next iteration of the canvas.
He is literally becoming the frame.
Yes.
The investigator's voice trails off into a ragged whisper, but the encrypted line stays open. And the person transcribing the call notes the final ambient sounds echoing through the vault.
And it isn't the sound of alarms.
No alarms.
Or struggle. Or even the investigator screaming.
No, the violence of the Alchemist artist is completely silent. The horror lies in the rhythmic, deliberate sound captured in the background.
It's the unmistakable sound of wet bristles dragging across a textured surface.
Someone or something is standing right behind the investigator, applying fresh, heavy strokes of oil paint to his hardening flesh.
Rendering him into the newest permanent installation of the Lumina collection.
And right after those brush strokes are heard, the encrypted signal is severed, and the classified file just abruptly ends.
Leaving us to grapple with the reality of an 18th century occult science, perfectly integrated into the modern elite art world. A system of preservation built entirely on human consumption.
It really forces a complete reevaluation of everything we've discussed today. I mean, we started with the physical impossibility of dead artists erasing their own legacies, moved through the forensic reality of 200-year-old paint becoming biologically active, and finally uncovered the terrifying architecture of the Lumina Gallery as a parasitic feeding ground.
It is a heavy, disorienting descent into a reality where art is the predator.
It really is.
And, it leaves us with a necessary, deeply uncomfortable framework to apply to our own lives.
How so?
Well, the Alchemist artists engineered a physical method to ensure their creations consumed human life to survive, right?
Right.
But look at the mechanics of our modern attention economy. Look at the media, the content, the digital ecosystems you interact with every single hour of your day.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going with this. We dedicate massive portions of our cognitive bandwidth to them.
Precisely. We feed these creations with our emotional reactions, our time, our neurological engagement.
Our pulse.
Yes. If a piece of art or a digital platform requires constant human interaction to remain relevant, to remain alive in the cultural consciousness, how much of your own neural architecture is currently being utilized to sustain it?
Are you engaging with the art, or are you simply serving as the biological frame, keeping someone else's creation alive at the expense of your own essence?
Exactly.
That is a staggering thought to end on for everyone listening. It turns every screen, every painting, every piece of media into a question of extraction.
It really does.
Well, thank you so much for exploring this dark, complex file with us. It's been an intense journey unpacking the hidden mechanics of the Lumina Gallery, and your curiosity is what makes these deep dives possible. Until next time, stay observant, guard your attention, and perhaps think twice before staring too deeply into a portrait.